Lost Chapter, Nyx, Shadows of Chipan. Neo-Tokyo, 2142. The red circuit, the flicker of neon danced across rain-slicked streets as Nyx slipped between the shadows of a crumbling arcade in old Chipan. Her HUD scrolled a torrent of data, tracing signals she'd been ghosting for weeks. Black market shipments routed through the ley-lined subgrids beneath Neo-Tokyo's corporate spine. Still on the tail, came a voice in her ear, distorted through the comms. Nyx smirked, adjusting the interface node embedded beneath her right temple. "You're too impatient, Q. I'm close." Her breath misted in the damp air as she knelt beside a broken drone, pulling cables from her sleeve. A moment later, her consciousness slid into the net, and the dark alleys of Chipan dissolved into flowing lines of red and green data streams. The grid stretched endlessly before her. Jagged spires of corporate firewalls and looming avatars patrolled like synthetic predators. But Nyx wasn't here to fight. She was here to watch. Virtual Construct, the undermarket. Nyx's avatar flickered into existence, clothed in a black mesh trench lined with shifting symbols, fragments of forgotten coding languages. Around her, avatars bartered over digital goods, software, stolen corporate intel, forged identities. She spotted her contact in the distance, a towering figure draped in crimson robes, Kuro, the architect behind Chipan's underground data routes. He turned as Nyx approached, his face hidden beneath an augmented mask. "You're late." Nyx shrugged. "Traffic." Kuro gestured to the data stream behind him, a shimmering ley line fractured into fragmented packets of light. "You want access to the black circuit, you pay the toll." Nyx held up a glowing shard of code, an override key siphoned from an initiative surveillance node. "Payment up front." Kuro's mask flickered, processing the trade. "Brave of you, Nyx. But the circuit is a dangerous place. Stay too long, and you'll see things not meant for human eyes." "Good thing I never blink," Nyx replied, stepping through the data veil. Reality shift, the red circuit, the world reassembled with a jolt. Nyx staggered to her feet on the rusted scaffolding above Neo-Tokyo's industrial zone. Below, smog-wreathed factories churned beneath flickering ley lines. The shipment convoy she had been tracking snaked through the streets, guarded by armed drones. Q's voice crackled back online. "You're deep now. Signal's fading. Pull out." Nyx ignored him. She saw something else in the convoy's path, a child, scavenging scraps too close to the shipment route. "Shit," Nyx hissed. She dropped from the scaffold, landing in the convoy's blind spot. A quick spike through her wrist pad froze the drone sensors just long enough to pull the kid into the shadows. The shipment passed by, unaware of the interference. Nyx crouched beside the child, who stared at her with wide eyes. "Stay out of these streets," she muttered, shoving a credit chip into the kid's palm. "Chipan eats the unprepared." As Nyx disappeared back into the neon maze, Q's voice returned. "You good?" Nyx's eyes narrowed, following the path of the convoy as it veered toward the towering silhouette of Initiative headquarters. "Not yet," she whispered, disappearing into the grid once more. The upper rings, Neo-Tokyo Skydocks. Nyx emerged hours later, standing on the edge of Neo-Tokyo's skydocks, where glass platforms stretched over the sprawling city below. Airships passed silently overhead, their underbellies lit with soft blue glow. Her quarry was here, she could feel it in the ley lines vibrating beneath her boots. She pulled up the scan on her wrist. A cluster of encrypted signals pulsed like a heartbeat from a hangar down the line. Arms dealers, running weapons off-world to unknown clients. The kind of cargo that tipped the balance of power in places like Chipan. "See it?" Q's voice returned, quieter now. "Got it." Nyx approached the hangar, her fingers dancing over her pad as she infiltrated the security perimeter. The hangar bay doors hissed open, and she slid inside like a ghost. Within, crates of high-tech weaponry glowed beneath containment fields. Nyx grinned. This wasn't just tech, this was initiative grade. "Jackpot," she whispered, planting a data spike to reroute the shipment to resistance contacts. As the spike pulsed, an alarm chirped faintly from the shadows. She spun, coming face to face with a towering security droid. Well, Nick sighed, reaching for the pulse blade at her hip. Guess I'm blinking now. End file. Nyx's first strike. Lost chapter. Nyx, Ghosts in the Grid. Neo Tokyo, 2142. Industrial sector. The pulse of distant machinery echoed through the alley as Nyx pressed her back against the cold metal wall. A low hum resonated beneath her boots, the thrum of the ley line beneath Neo Tokyo's industrial veins. Somewhere behind her, the security droid's heavy footsteps faded into the distance. Too close, Q muttered in her ear. That thing was loaded. Nyx exhaled, gripping the hilt of her pulse blade tightly. I noticed. Her eyes darted upward, catching the flicker of surveillance drones weaving through the smog-laden sky. Their red optics glowed like distant stars, sweeping the alley below. She'd learned long ago that staying visible for even a second too long could mean permanent deletion. Nyx reached into her jacket, fingers grazing the cool surface of a scrambler disc. With a flick of her wrist, she lobbed it onto the wall, where it latched magnetically. A moment later, the red glow above shimmered and distorted as the disc emitted low-frequency waves, bending the drone's detection field. The humming eyes drifted overhead without stopping. I need a new route, she whispered, slipping deeper into the alley's shadows. The walls were slick with condensation, and neon reflections from distant signs bled across the water pooling at her feet. Q's chuckle crackled through the line. Your funeral. You're off the grid now, Nyx. The initiatives flagged this zone. They'll be waiting. They're always waiting, Nyx muttered. She glanced at the shipment route pulsing on her HUD. The rerouted weapon crates were already on the move, just another ghost data trail in the net. But Nyx wasn't done yet. There were things hidden in Chipan that the initiative didn't want seeing daylight. Tonight, she intended to drag them kicking and screaming into view. A small icon flashed at the corner of her display. A signature she hadn't seen in months. Greta. Nyx stiffened. Q, did you tag this with resistance frequencies? Silence. Q. Look, I didn't have a choice, he finally replied. His voice dropped an octave, more serious than usual. You're deep enough as it is. They're watching this shipment. Greta wanted eyes on it. Nyx clenched her jaw. Greta Heller, one of the Resistance's inner circle. Dangerous, brilliant, and persistent. A constant thorn in the initiative's side. Fine, Nyx muttered. Patch her through. A second later, Greta's sharp, calm voice echoed through the line. Nyx? I take it you're enjoying your detour through initiative property. Nyx smirked, pressing forward through the maze of metal corridors. More or less. You know me, can't resist taking initiative tech for a joyride. I'm glad you haven't lost your sense of humor. But we both know you wouldn't intercept this shipment without a reason. What did you find? Nyx's eyes narrowed as she neared a loading platform. Below, mechanized arms shifted cargo into sleek black transports. The vehicles were shielded, and the initiative's logo shimmered faintly beneath layers of camouflaging light fields. Something big, Nyx whispered. This isn't just hardware. The initiative's moving personnel. High-value targets. Greta's voice dropped. Confirmed. We believe they're relocating specialists to off-world facilities. But we can't track them once they leave the atmosphere. Nyx crouched at the edge of the platform, scanning the convoy below. One transport in particular caught her eye, sleek, armored, and flanked by two autonomous drones bristling with weapons. Then I guess I'm hitching a ride. Nyx, Greta's voice turned sharp. You're not authorized to. Nyx cut the channel with a flick of her wrist. She'd always worked better without permission. The hum of approaching engines rumbled from below. Nyx tightened her grip on the scaffold railing and took a breath. The convoy began to roll out, neon reflections slicing across the pavement as the transports glided through the industrial district. Nyx's HUD highlighted weak points, ventilation panels, maintenance hatches, anything she could exploit. One quick jump. That's all she needed. She dropped soundlessly onto the transport's roof, her magnetic boots securing her landing. The world beneath her blurred as the convoy accelerated toward the outer limits of Chipan. Nyx crouched low, connecting a cable from her wrist pad to the vehicle's central processor. Lines of code unfurled across her vision as she combed through encrypted files. Each layer peeled away, revealing transfer manifests and encrypted personnel lists. "Show me," she whispered. One name blinked at her, a familiar ghost from a past she thought she'd buried. Klaus Heller. Nix's breath caught. "Q, you seeing this?" The line stayed quiet. "Klaus Heller," Nix repeated, heart thudding. "He's on this shipment." Q finally responded, his voice tense. "Nix, you need to bail. Now." She stayed crouched, eyes narrowing. "Not until I know where they're taking him." Below, a soft chime echoed through the transport, followed by the unmistakable thud of security drones deploying. "Well," Nix whispered, "guess I'm riding this one all the way." Lost chapter, Nix, Serpent's Whisper. The Serpent Spire, Zion Orbit, 2145. The spire loomed ahead like a blade piercing the black of space, its silhouette glowing faintly as ley line energy pulsed along its edges. Nix drifted along the outer maintenance ring, magnetic clamps securing her to the station's skin as she crouched near a data junction. "Tell me you've got a way in," Q's voice whispered through her earpiece. Nix narrowed her eyes, fingers dancing over the terminal's cracked interface. The Serpent Spire wasn't just a relic, it was a fortress, orbiting high above Zion, and heavily guarded by Ramses II's inner circle. A pulse of static flared across her HUD, and her link to the grid snapped in. "Found one. But it's messy," Nix replied, bypassing the firewalls. The ancient systems hummed beneath her fingertips, a relic of old Earth, patched over with initiative-grade tech. "We'll have 30 seconds once I trip the back door." 30 seconds? "That's generous for you," Q teased, but the tension in his voice bled through the static. "You're sure Ramses is even here?" Nix's lips tightened. She wasn't after Ramses, not directly. Somewhere inside, Klaus Heller was held under initiative surveillance, the key to unraveling secrets buried since Chipan. The Serpent's path led here. He's here. And if the whispers are right, so is the Serpent's queen. Q's silence stretched. Nix knew what he was thinking. No one tangled with the queen and walked away clean. The terminal chimed. Nix disengaged, slipping through the open service hatch as Zion's orbital glow faded behind her. Interior, Spire access corridors inside, the Spire felt different, warmer. Ancient stone and glass meshed with glowing conduits that slithered like veins across the walls. Nix's footsteps were soundless, her shadow merging with the faint gold glow tracing the corridors. "She's watching you," Q whispered. "The ley lines are stronger here. Don't let them latch on." Nix felt it too, the weight pressing against her mind, like invisible hands tugging at the edges of her thoughts. She brushed them aside, pushing further down the corridor toward the prison block. A soft thud echoed ahead. Nix dropped low, blending into the recess of the wall as two guards passed. Their armor shimmered faintly, patterned with intricate scales, serpent insignias embedded beneath each plating. "Klaus better be worth this." She moved in their wake, following the soft pulse of ley line currents that tugged toward the secured chamber. Her HUD flickered, there it was. Cell block 4A. Nix swiped her pad against the lock, but the door remained sealed. "Q, I'm on it." The lock light blinked green, and the door slid open with a hiss. Inside, Klaus Heller lay restrained in a medical chair, cables trailing from his temple to a nearby console. His eyes opened, dull but alert. "Took you long enough," Klaus muttered, voice hoarse. Nix grinned. "You're lucky I like you, old man. Now let's get out of here before the queen decides to collect more trophies." Alarms flared as they slipped back into the corridor. Somewhere, deep within the spire, something stirred. The inner sanctum, Queen's chamber. As they crept toward the extraction route, Nix felt the shift in the air. The lights dimmed, shadows stretching unnaturally long down the corridor. The Serpent's queen was more than a ruler, she was a force intertwined with the ley lines, her influence tangible within the spire. "Nix," Q's voice broke through the interference, "we've got inbound signatures, 3, maybe 4. I'm sending coordinates for a secondary route." Before Nix could respond, Klaus stumbled. She caught him, but his eyes shifted upward, distant and glassy. "She's here," Klaus whispered, his voice strained. "She knows we're leaving." A cold wind swept through the corridor, though no air vents lined these walls. Nix's HUD glitched momentarily, flooding her interface with encrypted warnings. And then she saw her. At the end of the hall, a silhouette emerged, tall, elegant, and draped in flowing layers of translucent silk that shimmered like liquid gold. Her crown flickered with pulses of green energy, ley line currents responding to every step she took. The Serpent's queen. Nyx's grip tightened on her pulse blade. Q, we have a problem. You're looking right at it, Q replied, tracking the queen's energy spike. Extraction routes closing fast. Whatever you do, don't engage. But Nyx knew better. The queen wasn't here to watch them leave. Klaus, Nyx muttered, pushing him behind cover, get ready to run. The queen's gaze locked onto her, and for a moment, Nyx felt her entire body seize, held down by ley line tendrils wrapping invisibly around her limbs. Memories flashed through her mind, Chipan, the undermarket, the resistance. The queen saw it all. Then, as quickly as it came, the pressure lifted. The queen tilted her head, almost in curiosity, before speaking. You've come far, Nyx. But you tread on dangerous ground. Nyx steadied her breathing. I've lived on dangerous ground. The queen's eyes narrowed. And yet you stand. The ley lines around them flared bright, blinding the corridor for an instant. When Nyx opened her eyes, the queen was gone. The alarms dulled, and Q's frantic voice broke through. What the hell was that? Nyx smirked, hauling Klaus up. Our invitation to leave. As the Spire faded behind them and the extraction vessel lifted off, Nyx cast one last glance at the orbiting fortress, knowing that their paths would cross again. Nyx, Vault of the Forgotten. Location, Southern Wastes, Unmarked Anunnaki Vault, 2146. Nyx crouched beneath the remains of a shattered obelisk, its surface scarred by centuries of sandstorms. The wind whispered through fractured stone, carrying ancient echoes that tugged faintly at the ley lines thrumming beneath the desert. Ahead, the vault loomed like a forgotten sentinel, half buried and rusted with time. Tell me we aren't doing this, Q's voice broke through her earpiece, laced with dry sarcasm. We barely got out of the last temple in one piece. Nyx adjusted her goggles, scanning the entrance for energy signatures. Relax, Q. It's not a temple. Just a minor vault. Greta Heller's voice cut in, firm and unforgiving. A minor vault that dates back to the first Anunnaki incursions. It's not a playground, Nyx. And Ramses wants it intact. Nyx smirked, shifting her weight to glance at Greta standing behind her. Clad in sleek tactical gear, Greta's eyes didn't leave the horizon. Next to her, Marcus Antonius checked his pulse rifle, while Jonah secured their landing point. Flavia crouched beside Nyx, setting up holographic projections over the entrance. Initiative scanners show minimal resistance inside. Likely dormant defenses. We crack it fast and quiet. Nyx exhaled, brushing her fingers along the vault's exterior. The metallic surface shivered beneath her touch, sigils faintly glowing with golden light. Minimal resistance usually means we just haven't woken them up yet, Jonah muttered, adjusting his rifle. I like a little resistance, Nyx replied with a grin, her breech blades flicking to life. The curved blades hummed softly, arcs of blue lightning rippling along their edges. Entrance chamber. The vault opens. The vault doors slid open with a low rumble, revealing a spiraling corridor lined with luminescent glyphs. The air shifted, stale, heavy, but alive with dormant energy. The ley lines brightened as they stepped inside, shadows stretching unnaturally along the walls. Feels like we just woke something up, Marcus whispered, his grip tightening. Nyx moved ahead, eyes sweeping the walls. Stay close. No heroics. Greta's glare was sharp. I don't need reminders. They descended further, the corridor narrowing until it opened into a vast chamber. In the center, a pedestal rose from the stone floor, floating above it a crystalline cube, pulsing faintly. Q's voice cracked with urgency. Nyx, that's not a vault item. That's a containment unit. Nyx frowned. For what? Before Q could answer, the cube flared bright, and the chamber trembled. Metallic footsteps echoed from the darkness beyond the chamber. Flavia's scanners lit up. Drones. 6, no, 8, coming in fast. Jonah raised his weapon. You had to wake them up, didn't you? Nyx smirked, spinning her breech blades. Told you I like resistance. The vault awakens, combat erupts from the shadows. Emerged sleek, bipedal drones, their bodies made of obsidian-like plating etched with glowing Anunnaki runes. Red lenses flickered as targeting systems activated. A low hum filled the chamber as the drone's weapons charged. Positions. Greta barked. Marcus flanked left, his rifle already spitting bursts of light at the nearest drone. Jonah dropped to one knee, covering their rear as more automatons spilled from the corridor. Nyx surged forward. Her breech blades sliced through the air in sweeping arcs, severing one drone's arm at the joint. Sparks erupted as the machine staggered. She spun, slicing vertically through its torso, leaving it in a smoking heap. Two down, she called, narrowly dodging a bolt of plasma. Flavia projected a barrier across the chamber entrance, cutting off reinforcements. Barrier won't hold long. Work fast. Marcus grinned. Fast is her specialty. Nyx dashed between the drones, her reflexes enhanced by the Metasphere's tactical overlay. Time slowed in fragments as her system processed enemy movements. She vaulted over a drone, plunging her blade into its exposed back. Its systems flickered and died. Jonah, status? Greta called. 3 left. One trying to circle. Jonah's voice cut off as a drone tackled him. His rifle skidded across the floor. On it, Nyx growled. She launched forward, throwing her breech blade like a spear. The blade impaled the drone mid-stride, pinning it to the wall beside Jonah. Appreciate the save, Jonah muttered, recovering his weapon. The last 2 drones converged on Greta and Marcus. Greta engaged one head-on, her twin daggers flicking with surgical precision, slicing through vital circuits. Marcus covered her, unloading rounds into the final drone until it collapsed. Silence fell over the chamber, punctuated by the faint hum of the crystalline cube. Deeper into the vault, the core as the last drone hit the floor, the vault shifted again. The pedestal sank into the ground, revealing a spiral staircase descending into darkness. You're kidding, Jonah said. There's more? Nyx wiped her blades clean, smirking. Wouldn't be fun otherwise. Greta gestured toward the staircase. Let's move. Whatever's down there, Ramses wants it intact. They descended in formation, the air growing colder with each step. At the bottom lay another chamber, this one far older. Carvings of Anunnaki figures towered over them, eyes glowing faintly. At the center, embedded in stone, rested a sarcophagus sealed with ley line bindings. Hugh's voice dropped to a whisper. That is not what I expected. Nyx approached carefully. I've seen bindings like this before. It's a prison, not a tomb. Flavia's scanner pulsed violently. Nyx? The sarcophagus trembled, and a crack of golden light split down its center. Jonah sighed, aiming his rifle. Of course you had to touch it. Nyx grinned. I told you, I like resistance. Lost chapter. Nyx, into the heart of the Metasphere. Neo-Tokyo, Initiative Stronghold, 2147. The sky above Neo-Tokyo bled crimson, fractured by the pulsing glow of corrupted ley lines snaking through the clouds. Nyx stood on the edge of the Initiative Stronghold, overlooking the city as data streams glitched along the skyline. The Metasphere was deteriorating, and she was running out of time. Nyx, are you seeing this? Hugh's voice crackled through the calm static lined the edges of his tone, as if even he was fading into the distortion. They've breached the outer defenses. Ramses' forces are in full lockdown. Nyx's visor flickered, scanning the distant towers as mech drones marched across the streets below. Her HUD highlighted the heart of the Initiative server core, pulsing like a beacon beneath the sprawl. I see it. This is the last node, Q. We shut this down, and the whole network folds. She flexed her fingers, breech blades shimmering to life at her sides. Greta's voice cut in, calm but urgent. Nyx, once you jack in, we can't pull you out manually. The Metasphere's corrupted. If you hit resistance. I know, Nyx replied, stepping toward the relay terminal ahead. Just keep the extraction point open. Marcus Antonius and Jonah stood at her flanks, weapons primed. Marcus gave her a nod. We'll hold them off out here. Get in, do what you do best. Nyx crouched beside the terminal, pulling cables from the interface along her sleeve. She exhaled slowly, feeling the hum of data pulsing beneath her fingertips. Metasphere interface, entry point, the world dissolved. The vault of the initiative's digital fortress sprawled around her, a shifting construct of infinite data streams. Runes danced across the walls, binding ancient architecture to cyberpunk geometry. Nyx's avatar flickered to life, breach blades glowing in the ethereal space. "Welcome back," Q's voice echoed, lighter within the metasphere. "I've marked the mainframe. It's deep, buried beneath layers of firewalls." Nyx sprinted along corridors of floating platforms, the ground beneath her feet morphing with every step. The air buzzed, alive with flickering specters of corrupted code. Digital phantoms watched from the periphery, dissolving the moment her gaze shifted. "Systems degrading faster than I thought," Q muttered. "This whole place could collapse. Then I'd better move quick." Nyx vaulted across a widening gap, landing on a fractured data bridge. The vault's structure flickered, twisting like a living thing resisting her presence. Drones materialized ahead, their sleek forms etched with glowing Anunnaki runes. Nyx lunged, blades carving through the air. The drones splintered, shattering into cascading data. "Firewall incoming," Q warned. A wall of crimson light stretched across the passage, pulsing with malicious intent. Nyx twirled one breach blade, plunging it into the firewall. Sparks erupted, and the air rippled with violent bursts of energy. Her vision blurred as the metasphere glitched around her, distorting into fragments of other places, glimpses of real-world memories she had long buried. "Focus, Nyx," Q snapped. "That's not real." Nyx ground her teeth. "I know." The firewall shattered, and the corridor straightened. She sprinted deeper into the vault, feeling the weight of the metasphere pressing in. Core vault, final confrontation. The vault's heart lay before her, a towering crystalline monolith, pulsating with corrupted ley line energy. Suspended above it was the initiative's final node, flickering like a dying star. A shadow detached from the monolith's reflection. Nyx tensed. A figure emerged, her. A twisted reflection, identical in every way, down to the faint scar along her temple. "What the hell?" Q's voice broke, his reading scrambling. "That's you." Nyx's doppelganger smirked. "The Metasphere's defense protocol. You can't kill what you are." The reflection blurred forward, blades clashing in a dance of light and sparks. Nyx grunted, blocking strike after strike. The doppelganger moved like liquid, mirroring her every motion with mechanical precision. "She's faster than me, Q." Nyx hissed, skidding backward. "No, she's exactly you." Nyx rolled, narrowly dodging a downward strike that carved through the platform. She grit her teeth, plunging her blade into the reflection's chest, only for it to phase through. "It's a failsafe," Q realized. "Destroy the core, or she'll keep regenerating." Nyx glanced at the node pulsing behind the doppelganger. "Cover me." Q's laugh crackled. "I'm already in your head, Nyx." Nyx sprinted toward the node, blocking the reflection's relentless pursuit. She channeled every ounce of energy into her breach blades, feeling the surge of ley line power crackling beneath her fingertips. She leaped, blades plunging into the node. The metasphere erupted. "Reality shift, extraction." Nyx gasped as reality snapped back into focus. She knelt by the relay terminal, Marcus pulling her to her feet. "Got you," Marcus said, steadying her. Jonah wiped his brow, staring at the skyline. Above Neo-Tokyo, the corrupted ley lines began to fade, replaced by streaks of brilliant white cascading across the city like falling stars. Greta's voice filled the calm. "It's done. We won." Nyx wiped sweat from her brow, stepping away from the terminal as the weight of victory settled over her. Q chuckled softly. "You did good, Nyx." Nyx grinned, gazing at the skyline. "I don't just do good, Q. I win."